Today we're going to talk some more about money. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the people who talk about money are people who generally don't have any. One of the luxuries of being comfortably off or rich is that you don't have to think about money and you don't have to talk about it all the time. It's people who are struggling who end up having to talk about money because everything that they buy is an issue for them. Now, Malawi as a country is a very poor place, and there is therefore pretty much an obsession with money and people talking about money all the time. So let's start with some basics. The Malawi currency is in a poor state, and it seems to be in a poor state permanently. We do talk about countries going from crisis to crisis. It's not quite like that in Malawi. It feels as though in Malawi we are constantly in that kind of middle level of chronic nightmare about money and income and expenditure and forex, and these things just go on and on. It's not like a crisis that comes and goes. It just is a permanent state. It gets a bit more severe sometimes, it eases a bit sometimes, but it is pretty much a permanent chronic state. So, how much is a Malawi kwacha worth? Well, slightly difficult question, because it depends on where you're getting your foreign exchange from. Let's try and put some figures on it. For a Malawian who has a paid job, now we're talking here about the 10% of Malawians who have a regular paid job. The minimum wage is something around 150,000 Malawi kwacha per month. That translates in pounds to somewhere between 30 and 50 pounds a month. So that's the basic figure, really. 150,000 kwacha a month, equivalent to between 30 and 50 pounds, is what a paid employee might be earning. A guard, for example, or a shop assistant with a wage. Now, the kwacha has devalued massively over time. When I first got my job, which was February of 2012, the exchange rate was 230 to the pound. It's now 2,300 to the pound at bank rate. So there's been a 10-fold reduction in the buying power of the kwacha over the years that I've been here in Malawi. But that only tells part of the story, because that rate is not the rate that a lot of people are using, because that rate is not a genuine picture of the buying power of the Malawi kwacha against the pound. There are, of course, black market people around who will exchange pounds for you at up to 5,000, so more than double, and I think in some places even above 5,000 now. So well above double the bank rate is available on the black market. Now, of course, the black market is illegal, but many people do use it. That means that the currency is that much out of joint in terms of what the international market feels that it's worth. Now that causes huge problems for Malawi. It means that there's always a struggle for forex. Malawi is not manufacturing a lot of things that are exported to other countries, so very little forex is coming in, but a lot of forex goes out. Malawi needs a lot of petrol and diesel. There's been a big increase in the number of cars recently, and minibuses and motorbikes. Now that could give you the feeling that Malawi is becoming more prosperous, but in fact that's deceptive, because a lot of the cars, a lot of the minibuses and a lot of the motorbikes are for taxis, and they're not owned by the people driving them in a lot of cases. A rich person has bought that vehicle and brought it in, and then they employ a driver to drive it for them to bring income from a taxi service. But that means that Malawi needs a lot more fuel. All of that fuel has to be bought on the international market and brought in. All of that needs foreign exchange money to pay for it. So there is a constant chronic shortage of foreign exchange. Businesses are struggling. If they have to buy raw materials outside the country, they're very, very unlikely to get foreign exchange from the bank enough to buy the things they need. For those people who are working in an expat job, like some teachers, for example, and some medical people, where they are paid in Malawi kwacha, but they are allowed to send money back home, the banks often do not have access to that foreign exchange. So some of those people are really struggling to get money out of the country and back home to pay their mortgage or to pay their bills. And even for travel, if you decide you want to make a trip and you want South African rand, or you want dollars, or you want pounds for your trip, even that can be difficult. The bank do not have the forex. It's a pretty desperate situation to be in. Now, we've talked a little bit about some numbers, but what does that mean in practice? Prices. Well, there are local prices and there are prices for imported things. Some things, to someone like me who has some access to money from outside the country, some things still feel relatively cheap. But most things have to be imported into Malawi, and there's a huge difference between local prices for local things and imported prices for things that are brought into the country. So we're talking about cars, for example. If you are able to buy a car, everything to do with cars is priced at a kind of international level. So, for example, if you need to go and buy 5 litres of oil, engine oil, for your car, you might be paying 200,000 kwacha for that, remembering that the monthly minimum wage is less than that, 150,000. So one can of oil is 200,000, more than a month's salary for a minimum wage worker here. The cost of fuel is incredibly high. Malawi, in one report recently, was the second most expensive place in the world to buy petrol and diesel. Another example would be fertilizer. Fertilizer is almost an essential here. Almost everybody grows their own crops on their own land, if they have some land, and all of it needs fertilizer. We'll come back to why we have that state of affairs where the land is so badly degraded that it needs fertilizer. But that's the situation. Everybody needs fertilizer to make their crops grow. The cost of fertilizer, of course, is international because it's all made internationally and it's all imported, and it's been affected by the war in Ukraine because a lot of it was brought in from Eastern Europe. It's been affected by the cost of transport, oil prices, and so on. So fertilizer now is standing at around 200,000 for one bag. Now, if you have a piece of land that is sort of the size of half a football pitch, imagine one half of a football pitch, that will need 4 bags of fertilizer. 2 bags of the one kind that you put on at the beginning, and then 2 bags of the other sort that you put on later. So we're then talking about 800,000 kwacha for a piece of land the size of half a football pitch. Minimum wage for those who have a wage is 150 a month. So for those who don't have a wage, of course, that's an astronomical figure. And 90% of Malawians don't have a regular wage. So that's the situation with money. That's how it is here. Because the currency here is so weak, it does mean that any money that we can bring in, for example, as Chimbota, from international donors does go a long way. And that is one of the things that I think it's very important to point out. Even a small amount of money, a small monthly donation, for example, does do quite a lot here. So, first mention of us asking for funding, I did say in the first video that that is one of the reasons that I'm putting these videos together. We are going to be pushing for more donors to come on board, and we're looking particularly for donors who are outside Malawi, who are able to make donations to our UK bank account in pounds or in dollars or in euros or in other currencies, which can then be exchanged and brought in. So watch out as we go through these videos for some more information about how you can help Chimbota to help people in Malawi who desperately need it.